We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And we have a really exciting episode for you today. Well, I think it's going to be exciting. I'm pumped for it because we're going to be talking about all things Thunderbolts last scene with the reveal of the new Avengers and the end credit, kind of putting them together because they go hand in hand. So we're going to be diving much deeper into that than we did in our initial reactions because we did not have time to talk about all of the things when we were reacting to the movie as a whole. So because I want to save as much time as possible to talk about all of the things that potentially brought on, I'm going to toss it over to Katie so that she can get us started.
Okay, cool. Because I want to just preface this all by saying, thank God we took a week off. Because I was pretty heated after the movie itself about the end credits scene. And I'm glad I've been able to not only calm down, but also be on the internet and kind of just get some differing perspectives. Were there a lot of perspectives that agreed with me? Yes. But there were also some that made me think. I'm not going to say they changed my opinion, but they did make me think about things. So I will say, let's start. They are tied together, but let's kind of start with the bigger topic of the new Avengers and Sam Wilson not being really a big fan. I will be completely candid with everybody. Because I'm a Bucky girl, I was like ready for war against Sam Wilson. And you all know me. I love Sam Wilson. I love him as Cap. Like, that's never been in the question. Go ahead and listen to the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Go ahead and listen to when we talked about Cap 4.
We don't have an episode about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh my God, you're right. We didn't have the part show. Well, either way, though, we were very excited.
I will vouch for her. She was very supportive. We were both very supportive of Sam becoming Cap. So that's what she's referring to, our private conversations.
Yes,
that were not recorded at the time.
It
will eventually be part of the replay.
Yes.
So we'll eventually get there. But
honestly, there actually is a good chance there's blogs about it because I was using it before the podcast. If y'all didn't know, if you're new here, before the podcast was actually the podcast, it was a school project and it started as a website and blog. So there's actually a really good chance that there are blogs about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Regardless, y'all know how we feel. I mean, we were mad Cap 4 wasn't more about him and, just whatever. But I was up in arms. The second, that and like, come on, childhood divorce again? Like, I can't handle that. Bucky is like destined to not end up with his Captain America. That's just apparently it. But like, I really was angry and I'm glad I've been able to sit on it because while I still have a lot of feelings, I've been able to not feel quite as ferocious about it.
Interesting. I am surprised that you are coming at this more measured because I will say, for all of you who were not in our private conversation pre us recording, our reactions, which is all of you because it was a private conversation, she was very angry, specifically at Sam. I will say from my perspective, I was not angry at Sam. I was angry at the studio for writing Sam that way because
Okay,
I
yes. Let
can
me
I
clarify by saying I agree with that. It's just no, and I am because when you said that, you
No, no,
and we
I'm not saying you don't disagree. I just want to finish my thought.
well, hold on. I just want
I was
to
on a roll.
express that that is how I also feel. Like, obviously, as we feel connections to these characters, we're saying, like, oh, well, Sam really made me angry. Yes, but the studio is the one who wrote him in that way. So, yes, to clarify, I agree with that statement.
Okay, I hear you. I'm going to go back onto my role now.
Go ahead.
My thing is it is not consistent, I think, with the Sam that we have seen since his introduction. He has always been about helping people first. He's never really cared about the Avengers title. He didn't even want to be Captain America. He just wanted to help people without, all of the expectations that came with that mantle and that title. So then for him to be fighting for and going after the copyright for, is it trademark, copyright, whatever, the legalese for the actual Avengers name is just very out of character. I do want to point out, and I love the Russo brothers, but I this is worth noting that it has now come out that that end credit scene was filmed on the set of Doomsday, which we know the Russo brothers are doing currently right now. So, as much as I love them, they do have a history of saying, LOL, what character development? LOL, what character history? And then refitting characters' entire personalities. I'm looking at Thor to fit their narrative in the films that they are building. So, let's just put that context out there because I think it's very important.
I don't even think you need to look as far as Thor. Look what they did to Cap.
Natasha?
But I mean, more specifically, I'm thinking about Steve. Look what they did to Steve in Endgame. And like, again, Bucky apologist, of course. But like at the end of the day, I'm not the only one out there that still can't figure out how a man who is the way he was and how everything about his life revolved around his lifelong friend was decided to not only go back and leave him behind, but completely change and alter the course of Peggy Carter's life, which we all saw play out in a show for almost his own selfish reasons. And then the apologists are all like, he's allowed to be selfish sometimes. That wasn't the moment though. Just to clarify, not the moment. And they did 2 out of 3 of Cap's movies, and we were not happy about how they ended up finishing his character. So, yes, I agree with Thor. I could literally go on an entire episode about Thor, but you don't even have to look that far. The guy who held the mantle before Sam, they did the same thing to. I think that okay, see that's what's getting me heated. Now I'm getting heated.
See, now I brought her back to the levels that I was expecting for this episode.
Yes. Okay, cuz here's the thing. I do love the Russo brothers. They have made the best movie that exists in the MCU in Captain America the Winter Soldier. Hands down, period, the end. It is the best movie. It is at least on everybody's top 5 list to this day, and with there's I'm sure some outliers of people, but anybody you see on the internet almost always ranks that in at least the top 5. I don't really understand where they go sometimes in their own brain, and I think you bring up the great point. They want to tell their story, and they I don't think are always considerate of the fact that these characters are from an extended universe. They're not the only ones. They're just the ones at hand that we're kind of throwing under the bus, but a lot of directors do it. I mean, no offense to Doctor Strange, but that guy has the weirdest character development in the entirety of the MCU because he's been stuck under so many different directors and so many different team up movies that like it's whiplash keeping up with who Stephen Strange decides he wants to be. Like
I'm
it
still so
really
mad
is.
we never got to see the end of what Derrickson was doing with him, but that's a
Well,
whole other
right.
situation.
It's just a whole thing. So like there are multiple characters that fall to having different directors. Natasha, as you brought up, a great example. That one, we don't even need to get into that. Again, we'll be way too heated for this conversation. That being said, I do think the Russos tend to struggle sometimes in that capacity to need to tell their story and not necessarily actually realize the bigger MCU. If that is what happened here, regardless if it's the Russos, regardless of whoever it was, the script at the end of the day set Sam up for failure. And I think the bigger conversation, I mean, there's a lot of parts of this conversation, but the bigger conversation is you're coming off the tail of a Cap 4, his first movie that didn't do so well. It didn't do poorly. It didn't do great. We even talked about we love Sam. Why was Sam like almost taking a back seat in his own movie half the time? So I think when you have a contested movie, that's his first appearance really truly as Captain America. Obviously, he's suited up in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but this was his first supposed to be solo adventure. And now you're going to sit here. Oh, and not to mention, we have a whole group of Marvel fans who don't want to accept Sam as Cap for a plethora of reasons that we don't need to get into. They're stupid reasons. I'm going to sit there and say that.
Agreed.
We don't need to get into it further. But regardless, you already have these kind of going against him. And then to me, you just put a huge target on his back because you had somebody like me, for example, who has loved Sam since he appeared in Captain America the Winter Soldier. And in a 3-minute end credit scene, I walked away being like, I can't stand Sam right now. I can't stand him. And I've calmed down in that capacity. But that's how quickly you change my perception of him.
Yeah. And I think, again, it goes back to the fact that, like, he has been this very steady, calm, loyal, like, guy who just, he does the right thing. He's the kind of guy you want in your corner. He's the kind of guy you want as Captain America. And he's different from Steve. His approach to it is different from Steve's, but they have the same genuine goodness that Captain America should have. That's why he's the perfect embodiment of that role. Not only is he going against the values that he has shown himself to have, right? And it's not about the words that you say, it's about the actions that you take. And he has shown time and time again the kind of man that he is, but he's also then going against, in my opinion, the very values of the mantle as well. The mantle has never been about titles or teams. Steve led the Dark Avengers, not the Dark Avengers, the Secret Avengers for how many years, of which Sam was a part because he was willing to break apart or break away from the Avengers in order to follow Steve do the right thing. And now you're telling me this same man is going to turn around and have a fight with his best friend who they had that beautiful scene in that movie, and he's going to fight his best friend over the name of his team? Absolutely not.
Yes, and that is where all my anger lies. But I'm going to give some food for thought, and then I'm going to say why it didn't change my mind. When I said there were some pieces that made me think, I did see some videos of people kind of talking about what they are seeing as Sam's perspective of it. And the one video, and when I tell you I've seen this video 3 days ago and I was still thinking about it. Like, I was consistently really trying to think from the other perspective. I'm trying to give myself the ability to not be in my rabbit hole of like, screw you, Sam, like, you suck for this, like, whatever. And let me tell you it, and then let me tell you why I don't agree with it. The general gist of it was that Sam respects the Avengers title and that the Avengers are usually seen to be the good guys. And so this is what this person was saying. I'm not obviously speaking for Sam, but this is what they perceived. From his idea of it all, he didn't feel like the Avengers should be made up of people who really aren't necessarily good people. This was the perspective. It was written better than that. It gave me food for thought. It did. Like I said, I thought about it for like 3 days. But then I was thinking about why all of that doesn't make sense. Because the first is, no offense, Natasha was the worst. Like, it was downplayed, obviously, because they weren't focusing on Black Widow. But before she was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, we literally watched her blow up I could drop the building on that little girl in Black Widow. Like, not a good person. Obviously, Tony had his turnaround, but like what he was doing for the longest time, and also, no offense, we all know my feelings about Tony, not always the best person, even as Iron Man.
Agreed.
That's just a fact. Hulk has left a sea of destruction. Thor, until his first movie, had we never gotten that, was like the worst.
Yeah. Total bro.
Yeah. Who am I missing? I know Cap. I don't count Cap because.
Hawkeye.
Oh, and Hawkeye, I mean, for S.H.I.E.L.D., he did just as many questionable things.
Well, not to mention then he goes on to be, this is after his time as an Avenger, sort of, but like he goes on to be Ronin.
Yes. So, like, that all being said, not everybody who showed up in that OG6 moment to fight Loki were the best of the best. So that's one argument against it. The other argument is kind of what you've already been saying. Sam as a character has always been very understanding. His best friend is Bucky. He's understood what he's gone through. I think he's also been very accepting, and Bucky's gone through a lot of change. And I think if Bucky's sitting there vouching for this other group of people to say that they have too, I don't see Sam being the type of person to be like, y'all are the worst people ever and you don't deserve to be heroes and change your life around. I don't see that for a second.
I totally agree. And you know why, too? The other thing that I think is so important to point out about Sam's character, what is the one thing that we learn about him at the very beginning? What is he doing that has him as an unsung hero outside of the wings? He is counseling veterans as they are, I'm assuming, coming back into civilian life and dealing with their, feelings about maybe what happened in service and helping them in that, what I would imagine is a very difficult transition. So think about the things that they may have had to do or experience. He was never judging them for that. He was helping them through it. This man has always shown a level of understanding and empathy that I think is one of the greatest of all of the characters that we have in the MCU. And so for them to pick this man of all men or women or characters in general to be the one who, if that is the reason that, oh, they can't be reformed, that is so in the face of everything he has stood for since before he was even linked up with Steve.
I agree. And I think that's why, like I said, I sat on that for days. And because I really was trying to understand, like, not living in my own little hole of people who are reacting similarly and trying to see this other perspective. And I really was like, I just don't see it. Now, the only caveat I will give it, which also feeds into why I think it's even weirder that this went the way it did, it's been over a year since Valentina sat there and made the Thunderbolts the new Avengers. It's been over a year. That being said, we know Thunderbolts takes place after Cap 4, so we can estimate it's been maybe, let's say, a year and a half, because it seemed like when they were like, oh, the last president, like, it seemed like some time had passed. It didn't happen right on its heels. This all being said, Sam was asked a year and a half ago at least to reform the Avengers, and he didn't really have the interest in doing so. We don't know what's changed. We don't know what he's been up to for a year and a half. But unfortunately, if that means he's gone through a shift, I don't know. I would hope that's not what we're seeing from this character, but maybe pressures from the government. We don't know who the president is. We don't, and we know he, as Captain America, is ironically working hand in hand with the government, even though Steve's Cap was not really, yeah, maybe he started as a tool for the government during World War II, but obviously ended up very far from it, i.e. nomad. Like, we all saw this happen. So I don't know if it's because he's kind of gotten further engrossed in the government or it's the other way around. I don't really know, but it has to be in that time jump. It has to be somewhere in there that there's been a change of heart. I still don't agree with it, regardless of what the reasoning is. I think it's wrong. Not to mention, not to make this a Bucky thing, but truly I'm gonna, because why wouldn't I? At the end of the day, that's not only your best friend, but you watch this man go through the worst. Remember when he tried to kill you on the highway? Like, this guy has made so much progress in his life. He's now an Avenger. That's crazy. Like, if you would have told me even like 2 years ago that Bucky would actually be an Avenger, I would have laughed in your face. And not only is he an Avenger, but from what I saw, he's perceived as one of the leaders. Him and Yelena appear to be the leaders of the new Avengers. And you're going to fight with him over this, over the name? Because he can't call himself that? Is he not good enough to call himself that? Like, I just think that's crazy from a like relationship level and what we've seen perceived as the two of them being very close to suddenly like we're going to fight over a name. Like that's really insane to me.
Yeah, it's very jarring, and I don't think it is consistent at all with the, again, who Sam is as a character, but then also the evolution of specifically Sam and Bucky's relationship. I mean, the things that they were going through in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and going to like therapy together, and meeting, Bucky met his sister and helped him with their family boat. Like, they were just continuing to build these emotional bonds that then pay off in that really beautiful scene in Cap 4 where they're literally telling each other how much they love each other and how much they mean to one another. And then it just seems so, I guess jarring is the right word, whiplashy, whatever, to then have Sam turn around and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, like I'm willing to really put my friendship on the line over a name." That's not his character and that's not the relationship that we've seen them build over the last few years. The one thing I did want to ask you because I just genuinely don't remember, doesn't he at the end of Cap 4, Sam like hint to Joaquin that he's willing to put the Avengers together? Like in the hospital room?
I think so.
And it could just be that he's been slowly building out or getting in touch with people because they really haven't been, talking to one another. At least Sam, it doesn't seem like, has been talking to the other, whether they're former Avengers or anybody who fought in Endgame. Like, it doesn't really seem like he's kept in touch and really been doing a lot of that. So maybe he's been spending the last year or so kind of working behind the scenes to build that team. But even if he is doing that, the crux of the issue isn't that Sam is building an Avengers team, it's that he has a problem with combining the teams because that doesn't make sense for who he is.
And that's the nail in the coffin for me. That was the next point I was going to bring up is quite frankly, the problem solved by combining them.
Yeah,
Whoa, just said that. Like it's not hard. But it is an issue with clearly Sam sees them as a separate entity. He sees them as a separate team. I would be curious to understand who's on the team for him to feel that way. But also, that's what I think does give that video I saw some merit about him maybe having feelings about these people not being, and I'm using air quotes, good enough to make an Avengers roster. But like, no offense, but like Wanda made it after she was literally working for Hydra. Let's not forget. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be putting like assumptions out there, but this is what we're left to do, right? And so I do think in this scenario, from what we're seeing, he does not believe that these teams are equal. I think it's stupid. I really do. I think it's really not hard. And also, again, being the Bucky girl I am, I think it's a punch in the gut to his best friend to clearly be like diminishing his team and being like, you guys aren't the real Avengers. You guys can't use the name. You guys can't. Like, Steve would so not be having it right now.
I agree. I also think it's kind of cheap from a larger narrative standpoint to be going into a large culminating movie like Doomsday. Actually, I'm going to relabel that because I do not consider Doomsday a culminating movie, considering nothing has led up to it at all. But a larger crossover film like Doomsday with the cast that it has, and they're going to split the teams again. They're going to make them at odds again. And
Yeah.
it feels cheap and it feels like, oh, let's just run it back. That worked last time. And it's going to pave the way for, conflict between the teams and the reason why Doom's going to have success. Because let's be real, Thanos partially had the success that he had with the stones because the teams were separated, they were not working together, and they were not collaborating. Had they done that, maybe Infinity War would have had a different ending. And now they're setting up the same kind of conflict again. And it just kind of feels like, okay, I see that as a studio, you recognize that the last few phases have not gone the way that you've wanted them to go. Fans are not as happy as they used to be. And it's like one of those things where they're repeating things because they feel safe. It's the same kind of decision to me as bringing RDJ back because it's safe and because he puts butts in seats. And this is the same style of decision. And to me, it's a weakness and it's really annoying.
I am inclined to agree with that. I do think in some capacity, I mean, okay, let me say it this way. Phases 1 through 3 had one thing lead to another. They were set up to do so. And so it wasn't weird that the teams were separated when Thanos came because we just watched Civil War happen. Been there, done that, watched an entire movie about it. If you are, I'm not, okay, I'm not going to say that the formula could or could not work again, a second time. Quite frankly, let's be honest, there was a bit of a formula used in Thunderbolts in reference to Avengers. It didn't not work. It's actually when it deviated a little bit from the formula where we felt that Thunderbolts fell a little bit short. Regardless, you cannot tell me that the teams are going to be split up and separated because they both want to call themselves the Avengers and tell me that's going to be the crux of why they won't fight together. That's ridiculous.
I'm so glad you said that because I was going to say if you're comparing this rift to the one that we had leading up into Infinity War, to your point, we watched Civil War. We understood why the teams were on the sides they were on, regardless of who you backed. You understood at least the reasoning, right? To me, the Sokovia Accords was the type of thing that is worth having a battle over. It's a true test of values and what you believe to be right and wrong. That's the type of thing that should have Avengers sniping and fighting with one another. Not who gets to call themselves an Avenger. That's just a weak excuse to separate them in comparison to why they were separated before. And then you cheapen the payoff of Endgame where they realize that they are stronger together and they're making the same mistake again.
And also, we don't have Sam's Avengers team. We've never seen it. So I don't care. I don't care. I just watched an entire movie about the Thunderbolts and watched them become the new Avengers. And yes, would I probably care about them more anyway? Of course. I mean, I'm going to be honest. There is nobody else that's missing from the roster that will be on the Avengers roster that I love more than Bucky and Yelena. That's a fact. Sorry. But at the end of the day, we don't even have the other team. Like, again, we watched Civil War happen. We watched Iron Man fight Cap. We watched their teams pick sides and we saw who picked for what reasons and everything else. I don't even know what the other team looks like. We're fighting a ghost. We only know Sam, and maybe that's why a lot of this is also falling on Sam's shoulders, is because there aren't any other shoulders for it to fall on. We only know Sam, and he's like, no, you can't call yourself the Avengers. We're the Avengers. Who is we?
Yeah.
I don't know what your team looks like. You could have She-Hulk, you could have Shang-Chi. That's great and all and dandy, but we don't know that. We do not know who's on your roster. So that almost makes it worse. Like, I think between, to your point, it cheapens the lessons we've learned in Endgame, in which, by the way, Sam was there. Hello, you were there. You were there. You know who else was there? Bucky. You were both there.
Yeah.
You also are sitting here from the audience's perspective. You just watched a movie with a team that felt more like a family in one movie than the Avengers ever actually felt with each other. You're already invested. I mean, this movie made me like John Walker, and that's saying a lot.
That's an uphill battle.
No, really, it really is. But then you're sitting here trying to convince the audience we should be sympathetic to Sam and the fact that, no, his team is the Avengers. Again, what team?
Yeah, it is. It's to your point, it's hard to root, even if like you want to root for Sam and you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I think in our heart of hearts we both do. We love Sam and that's I think why you spent so much time trying to be understanding of the other perspective because nobody wants to be annoyed at Sam, at least on this show.
No, I mean, like, if this was John Walker on the other side, I would be up in arms and
I'd
ready
be like,
to fight.
all right, cool, this guy's a turd.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But it's not. It's Sam. It's someone who we love and respect. And he's essentially fighting for something that, we can't see or really value because we don't know what it is. So if you wanted to say, oh, well, he is fighting for the Avengers because he's got X, Y, and Z on his roster and this is why it makes sense, you could form that argument. But we don't know who that is. We are not emotionally invested, to your point. And so those efforts fall on deaf ears because there's nothing to back him up. He's literally standing there from our perspective by himself against 5 characters or 6 characters that we really like and that we have just spent time learning about their deepest, darkest shames, empathizing with, walking through mental health struggles with. And we're supposed to be like, cool, this is fine. Sam's annoyed about a name. We don't even know who he's fighting for. Like, who is Sam fighting for? I don't know. And that makes it really tough to have an equally balanced argument.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I just met Bob, and he's essentially the biggest groupie. and I am in love, and
I
I will
adore that
protect Bob
man.
at all. Yeah, I mean, I will literally protect him with all of my life. Like, I don't care. That is how invested I've become already in a character I didn't know. I was going off last episode about how much I loved Ghost in this movie. Like, investing. I don't know your team. Therefore, I'm not invested at all on the fact that you're angry that they're using the Avengers name. You can have differing points of view. I do hope, looking forward, because there's a reason for this, and if they really are going to separate them out again, I'm going to have words already about a movie that is only filming. Like, you know what I mean? But I really do hope this is not going to come into the exact same way we did Infinity War.
Yeah.
There's a bigger threat out there. I also think some of these characters are more level-headed. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but Tony and Steve fought the very first time they met each other.
Yeah.
Like, they did not like each other 90% of that movie because Tony grew up being jealous of Captain America. Like, that is just its own, like, deep-rooted lore and daddy issues. Like,
Yeah.
you can't unpack that in a movie. And that's what also made Civil War so easy to happen, because those two, while they worked together the way they needed to at times, were never going to see each other from the same point of view. They were always looking at different things from different perspectives, and not in a good way. That being said, it made sense why everything happened there. For this to be the reasoning, for Sam to, like, if it's going to end up being where Sam will not fight with Bucky, I don't see it like that. That is a literal slaughter of a character, because I don't see Elena being like that. I don't see Bucky being like that. I don't see the entire new Avengers team being like that. And I don't care who you put on the Avengers roster. I don't see any of the newer characters. I mentioned She-Hulk, Shang-Chi. Let's just throw like Spider-Man in there too. I don't see a single one of them sitting there being like, "Oh, you guys are bad people. I'm not fighting with you," even though there's a space guy coming and he's scary and all of our universes are colliding. Like, it just it seems really dumb if that's where we're going.
I 100% agree. I think the best way to sum up what you just said, you're going to love this. The best way to sum up what you just said is none of our current characters have an ego the size of Tony Stark, and therefore they couldn't care less.
Correct. Correct.
One sentence. There you
Yeah.
go.
I think too, it's a very shallow argument. It's really stupid, and we have a bigger threat coming. It's not worth it.
I agree.
It's just not. And I really think being a name, I also think they won't, from a bigger like universe way, they're not going to rename Thunderbolts slash New Avengers again.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's our team. I'm not saying Sam won't be a leader, but I think we have to end up combining, because they will not give them a third name, especially after all the marketing they've done to really drive home that they are the new Avengers. Like, they're completely changing the posters of the Thunderbolts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that they would do Dark Avengers at this point because to what you were saying, they've already kind of done the big reveal.
And they already had the opportunity, and I still think Sam would have fought them anyway. It's got the Avengers name. I don't think the new is the problem. It's just solely that they're being considered Avengers.
Yeah, but they're fine if they have it with a Z, obviously.
Avengers.
I do want to talk about the new Avengers in the comics because this is a real team. And so I just want to give some quick hit tidbits since we are going to be seeing them in the future. So, the fun fact about the new Avengers that I love is that they actually form after the Scarlet Witch gets rid of the original Avengers when she kind of goes a little berserk after the twins die. So interesting because we have seen her lose her mind after the twins die. We had a very different result, but I kind of love when they take storylines like this and they've kind of split them out and like rework them. I think it's great that they don't always take things immediately from the comics, but I love that these are kind of happening in parallel, or at least we've seen them happen within a few years of each other. The actual roster I find fascinating of the new Avengers, and obviously it's an Avengers squad, so it rotates. But when they first form, it is Iron Man, Captain America, Spider Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, Spider Woman, and Sentry. So we've got a mix of like OG6 and Sentry and Spider-Man and a Defender and a character who has not made an MCU debut, but it's an interesting squad.
I can't see any of them working well together. Not even just personality and in that way, but just like as a team. I just don't really see them meshing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating group of folks for sure. But the thing that is also super interesting is this is actually the team that went through the first Civil War. So when they had all those arguments about superhero registration, this is the team that split. And so then Luke Cage had his own new Avengers squad, which was Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Spider Man, Wolverine, Spider Woman, and Ronin. They worked out of the Avengers Mansion, which then existed in parallel with a Cap and Iron Man Avengers team, which worked out of Avengers Tower. So if you think about that, that's a little flipped from what we have now. We have the new Avengers in the tower. The new Avengers at other points have also included Jessica Jones, Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel, not Captain Marvel, Hawkeye, Mockingbird, who we thought was going to make a full debut in Thunderbolts. Maybe we'll still see her later, and The Thing. And there's just, yeah, lots of other iterations of them. Sunspot had his own new Avengers that actually had a lot of young Avengers. So Wiccan, Hulkling, Squirrel Girl, White Tiger, Power Man, Songbird, Pod, and Hawkeye. I do just want to say I was wrong. The character Mockingbird was not who we thought was going to be in the Thunderbolts. That was Songbird. Never mind. That was a mistake. But anyway, I just listed out a lot of characters. That is all to say, like every team in the comics, it is an ever evolving roster, but they are, an important team that was involved in a lot of really interesting storylines, including my favorite, which is that it was a new Avengers comic that helped set up Secret Wars. So just putting that out in the ether.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Secret Wars, I think we need to pivot to the other half of this end credit,
Yes.
which I actually have a few theories about, and that's all we got because we had a flying ship.
Yep.
So initially, I think a lot of people's reactions were, and actually, I could tell you because I was online. Oh, they just spoiled the end of Fantastic Four. Why would they do that? Here are my thoughts. Some of them are my own, some of them are not. One is, one isn't. First and foremost, I thought Doctor Doom was on that ship before it rotated. Why? Well, why not? I mainly wasn't paying attention. Well, I really wasn't paying attention to the Fantastic Four trailer. Like, I was watching it before the movie, but like I wasn't processing that was the ship. So I didn't recognize the ship like many other people did. They recognized it immediately before it rotated. Not me.
Yes, I did. I was one of those people.
No, I needed it to rotate. And I was like, oh, I thought it was Doctor Doom. I still think that is a possible theory because here's the thing Marvel did not just spoil the end of their next movie for the sake of an aha end credit, even though we have the next movie coming up. I genuinely think there's a strong possibility, whatever the events that take place in Fantastic Four, somehow Doctor Doom is on that ship. That's mine.
Wait, what if hold on, to build on that before you go into your next theory. This is a wild one, but I feel like we're living in wild one territory, so I'm going to put it out there.
Fair.
We're dealing with a multiverse, and they haven't necessarily tied RDJ's Doctor Doom to Pedro Pascal's Fantastic Four. Yes, I'm calling them Pedro Pascal's Fantastic Four because y'all know that's my man. And it could be interesting if he is, in fact, do you drive a spaceship? Fly a spaceship?
Fly?
Whatever. He is manning the spaceship of a Fantastic Four team that he killed in his own universe.
So I like that. And I'm going to say I like it because it kind of goes into the other theory that I'm seeing online, which is that's not the Fantastic Four we're seeing in the movie.
Ooh.
And that's in other universes. So I actually think that kind of marries both of them. That there's a strong possibility that yes, it's Doom, but it's actually because he killed his own Fantastic Four and has overtaken their ship. That's like almost the one that when the two other theories had a baby, that's what came out of it. Because like I said, the other theory that I've been seeing is that this is not our Fantastic Four that we're going to watch a movie on in 2 months.
Interesting. I think both of those have merit. I will say, if you want to take it at face value and say that that is our Fantastic Four, someone told me, and if you're listening, it was you, thank you, told me a theory that they heard, which was that the Fantastic Four that we are seeing in this upcoming film actually lost to Galactus, and they are coming to another universe because he actually devoured their world. and that's their motivation, which I really like. And I think is kind of the flip side of the theories that you were giving about, it's not who we think it is, it's actually kind of a ruse. This would be more along the lines of a straightforward, like they are showing what happened at the end of the film, but maybe not quite so straightforward of, oh, we know they win and now they're, aware of the multiverse and they're traveling because we see Reed doing the calculations, but the opposite of, oh my gosh, they had to abandon their entire world because Galactus devoured it.
I feel like I actually saw that theory floating around somewhere as well. And I'm not mad about that because I think to build on top of that, they could be attracting Doom to our universe.
For sure.
Because let's not forget, we were pretty much confirmed that Doom is not going to be playing much of a part in this Fantastic Four movie. Do I think he's out there? Yes. I don't think you have a universe where the Fantastic Four doesn't have a Victor Von Doom. Like,
Agreed.
that seems very strange to me. That's a hand in hand kind of thing. So, that being said, I do think if that theory holds true and they end up losing in their movie, which again, you're saying this is kind of face value if this truly is them. I think it would be a very interesting way then to also bring Doctor Doom in is like they land on 616. Let's theoretically say Sam's Avengers find them or they all find them. I don't know. I'm thinking they all show up at the airport. But you know,
You're not
but
wrong.
then like they're all standing there and boom, Doom appears. And that's how Fantastic Four ends because now you're going right into Doomsday.
Yeah, that is very possible. I think the other third route you could go is to truly take it at, again, face value, but the idea that the Fantastic Four do beat Galactus. However, in doing so, they have started an incursion on their home planet. And that is the other thing to think about. We know that their universe combines with 616. So this would deviate a little bit from the comic, the 2015 Secret Wars comic, and how it starts. But if they are escaping a universe that is in the middle of an incursion because of something that they did in order to stop Galactus, then that could be interesting and set up Doomsday to be more of a him maybe following them. They are, battling on 616. And that's how this Doomsday movie, I should say, shows how Victor Von Doom goes from like normal, relatively normal guy to God Doom. And that's the evolution and the storyline and the plot of Doomsday, because we don't really know what the plot of Doomsday is, but I think it could actually be interesting to double click into his transition from regular old run of the mill Doctor Doom that you would get in any universe to the God Doom that is then going to be ruling over Battle World in Secret Wars.
I think that's a fair third option. I think on the other end of that, what could be really cool, same idea, but they aren't fleeing an incursion. They don't know they're in one.
Oh.
And they just fly accidentally into 616 because they're bleeding into each other. And that's how.
Yeah, like maybe they had to send Galactus away and on their way back, they don't realize that the multiverse is collapsing and they think that they're coming onto their planet or their universe, but they accidentally took a left turn.
Exactly. And that's kind of how they end up. Because I do like the incursion theory as well, because we know it's here. Let's not forget, as much as we try, let's not forget MOM. Doctor Strange's end credit scene, Clea shows up from the dark dimension and is like, you caused an incursion. And we've never heard about it since, but that happened. And so I do think it's important to note, like, we've never been able to know for sure if it was 616 entering that incursion or if it was from other universes. We've never actually gotten confirmation yet because, we've never heard anything about Doctor Strange since MOM. But I do think that's something to note because that is a loose thread that we still have floating out there, that as soon as that was said, everybody, that's when the ding ding dings went off and we all went, oh, Secret Wars is happening.
Yeah.
So I think it would be strange to not have some of the conversation be based off of the incursion. So I do think that one has a lot of merit to me. I also think you could actually just combine a lot of these all together in all sorts of different combinations and they would still work.
Oh, for sure. One other piece, you're talking about like loose threads and end credit scenes that have yet to pay off, and this is not nearly as long ago, so it has a little bit more of a shelf life in my eyes, away from being like, ugh, remember that end credit scene they never paid off? But in the Avengers comic where they're setting up Secret Wars, the Illuminati is actually really trying to stop basically the whole multiversal collapse, as they're kind of the first to recognize it, was my interpretation. I didn't read this comic. I just literally started reading when the last two universes were colliding. So I'm a little fuzzier on this part. But what I think is interesting is Beast is actually a member of that Illuminati. I believe after Professor X dies. Fascinating, because we saw a Professor X in an Illuminati die in 814. That's not definitely not the number. Whatever number universe that was with the
I want to
eight.
say it's like 816 or no. I used to know it.
838. You did, because you always used to correct me when I
I
would
do
say
feel
the
like
wrong.
it's 838.
Anyway, the universe with Jim from The Office as Reed Richards. So we have this end credit scene where Monica slipped into another universe and was met by a very specific character in Beast. Now, I do think that if you're gonna really go theory rabbit hole, which is what this show's about, if you want to say that it was intentional that Beast was one of the characters there with her mother when she awoke, that could actually have indicated that wasn't just an X-Men facility, but in fact, he was a member of the Illuminati of maybe a different universe. I'm not sure how that all works, if there's just one or if there's multiple, that is tracking multiversal collapse and the walls coming down between universes, and basically the fences between universes being more porous. I do just want to throw that out there.
That one started to get a little scientific-y, it felt. But
Wait, let me explain it better, because I feel like I can do it in one sentence, because I too was losing the thread
yeah,
as
I
I
could
was
tell you
speaking.
were, and I was also like, I don't know where we're at anymore.
Okay. Before Secret Wars, Illuminati recognized the multiverse was collapsing. One of the members was Beast. We know from the Marvels that basically it seems like the multiverse is becoming more porous. There's more ways to get around the universes than just magic, or what's the other one? Space. But what is possible is the reason that Monica was greeted by Beast is because that wasn't just Beast of the X-Men, that was Beast of that universe's Illuminati, who are watching for multiversal anomalies because they are aware of the multiversal collapse, and potentially the incursion from Doctor Strange's end credit scene is not related to any universes that we know, but just general collapsing of the multiverse as the beginnings of Battle World are starting.
I hear you. That was not one sentence, unless you just decided to do a lot of commas.
It was if I used a lot of semicolons, and therefore it was one sentence.
Sure. I hear you. I think it could have merit. I mean, in this case, I think it's hard to say anything's like wrong or not.
Yeah.
But I do think, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we overthink Marvel because we give them more credit sometimes nowadays than I think they always deserve.
Sometimes our theories are better than what actually happens on screen, and I'm just going to say that with the utmost confidence, because I truly believe in a few instances it's true.
No, that has happened multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that all being said, literally Daredevil born again.
No, honestly though,
Like,
we
not
wrote
that
the
I'm
season
regretting
better
how
than they
we got
did.
there, but like what we thought was going to happen with Muse and all that stuff, better. But anyway, not important. I think again, this is one of those things where I don't see it being face value that, oh, they beat Galactus and they're just coming. No, I don't see that being the face value. I think you didn't see Reed Richards step out of there. Point, the end.
It's like the living version of No Body, No Death. It's
No,
like no
really.
sighting, you don't know it's him.
Right, exactly. Like you're sitting there and you're like, no, we saw a ship, and that's great, but guess what? Anybody can be in that.
Yeah.
And so I think that being said, that's what leaves it open ended, and that's why I don't think, like, if they were really going to, that was the direction they really wanted to go, I think they would have made it more clear. I also think, to a lot of people's points, why would they give away the ending of a movie that's coming out in 2.5 months? I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to. I think it's bigger than what exactly we saw. Even if it is that team, even if it is that Fantastic Four, I do think there's going to be the perspective of they either lost or they're going to be fleeing doom. I just think there's a lot more to what we're seeing, and we shouldn't take it at face value.
I totally agree. And I am now, I didn't think it was possible, even more excited for first steps. I'm like literally counting down. It's going to be so great. And I really am so curious how they're going to pay off this end credit because I think they just upped the stakes for themselves and they were like, bet now you have to watch this movie. And if they don't pay it off well, the fans will come for blood because they set us up now and we expect that they will meet our expectations or exceed them. But on that note, I think it's time to call it for our immediate reactions to, well, not immediate, for our very thoughtful reactions to the new Avengers naming and the end credit scene and where that might lead. We have a bunch more exciting episodes to come up on various topics. So please make sure that you are following on your podcast platform of choice. You can also check out the website if you're curious about anything related to Sisters Assembled. As of course, as we always say, that is the hub to all things related to the show. And last but not least, if you are enjoying any of the content that we're putting out, you can support us via our Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are linked in the show notes down below as well. And we are still in our Thunderbolts era. We have one more episode in which we are going to talk all about Sentry. That's it. Bob, he's getting the spotlight. We're very excited for this episode. We're probably going to spend more time focusing on him than he got to actually be Sentry. So that's going to be fun. But keep an eye out for that. That's going to come out next week. And then we are off the week after. We will be on vacation. So there will be a small gap. There will not be an episode. We will remind you guys next week, of course. But just so you know, there will not be an episode after our next Thunderbolts episode. And after that, we are going to have a very special episode for you guys. We will have more details on that as we get a little closer. But also keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.